All right, and welcome to Conjuring Courage, how to be braver than you ever thought possible. Thank you for joining me. My name is Stewart Fleming. This is another Australian small business advisory solutions services. They're calling it Digital Solutions now. So this is another ASBAS or Digital Solutions webinar, and that's organised by the Regional Development Australia as well as Business Station. Thank you for Business Station to help host all of this for us. So tonight I'm going to be talking about courage and how to conjure it when you need it. So I've started the recording here. Just maybe double check that that is happening. Yep. And if you are playing along at home, if you are watching the recording, you didn't make it live tonight, well, you don't get to ask questions. Oh, I'm very sorry. But for those that are playing along and with me tonight, what I would like you to do, if in the chat box, you can see when you can chat to all panelists and attendees. I'd like you to change it to just all panelists so that only I see it. And if you've got a particular thing that you're afraid of or thing that you want to work on, please include that, type that in there. If you're brave enough, put in the thing that you would like more courage with. So let's just jump straight in. I've got about an hour, and I've got a lot of stuff to get through. So let's just see how quickly I can get through it. As you're typing and you're putting in your fears, if you could type some expectations for me, that would also help out. So what is it that you actually really want out of tonight? So tonight, these are the expectations to set to what I'm going to cover. I'm going to talk about what it is. We're going to talk about the systems at work. We're going to be talking about changing your mindset. We're going to talk about courage in culture, some courage hacks. We won't get a chance to do the group exercise because, well, this is a webinar format, and some homework. But there's a quote there that I put into one of my magazines, and it is, "Courage is the foundation on which all virtues are built." And if you have a think about it, all other virtues rely on the fact that you can be courageous in yourself. And that's why I say being bulletproof, being super courageous, is probably the highest attainment, if you like. What would happen if you are unafraid of everything? So what is courage? Well, courage is taking action. It's making wise choices in the face of fear. So if you're faced with a particular fear, you may decide, that's fine, that's a great fear, I'm going to take knowledge of that. So I'm not talking about being stupid. There is being courageous and there's being courageously stupid. So stepping off a cliff. Now, if you were stepping off a cliff and you've got all the safety features of a bungee attached to you and a million people have done it before you, well, then maybe that's okay. Another factor of being courageous is being honest with ourselves and others. And I think this, for me, is one of the biggest ones. If you can be honest with yourself, if you can be honest with those around you, it's really, really cool. And that comes from courage. So no more sneaking behind anyone's back. You just tell them. That's it. So what is courage to you? Is it accepting what we cannot change and changing what we can? Is it forgiving those that hurt us? Choosing joy in all circumstances. What is courage to you? What is the thing that you're afraid of that you want to work on? Now, one of the biggest fears that people have is that they will be judged. If that's one of your fears, just let me know. But that particular fear is very, 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 very large. That and speaking in public, the two biggest ones. Now, you'd think, fear of death, some serious fears of being eaten, fears of being run over, fears of flying. But it's actually the biggest fears are fears of being judged and fears of public speaking. And we're going to cover off, I believe in the slides, I haven't gone through them today, I went through them last week, but I believe I'm going to cover that off, and if I don't, I'll squeeze it in for you, the fear of public speaking. So courage allows us to do a lot of things. It allows us to be honest with everybody. It allows us to live our true potential. But you only get to do that if you can conjure enough courage when you need to. So let's have a look at the systems at work. So we have the human brain. Okay, very cool. Broken up into monkey brain, lizard brain, and heart brain. If you've heard of monkey brain and lizard brain before, you'll understand what those are. Monkey brain really is, I see a reward and I want the reward and I'll go for the reward, whereas lizard brain is controlling all of the lower functions, such as your heart rate and your breathing when you're not thinking about it, sleep, metabolism, what else? Digestive system. So you've got your human brain, your monkey brain, your lizard brain, and all three of those live in your head. Okay, so those three are really your human brain. Then you've got your heart brain. So your heart is kind of where a lot of the emotions live. And then you have your gut brain, and then you have your microbiome. Now those two are separate, but live together. So your gut brain, your enteric nervous system, starts at the lips and ends at the anus. And it's all of the bits and pieces in the middle. And so if you've touched a worm, you pull the worm out of the ground and you touch it, you'll see it squirm and pull around. And that's exactly what our guts do. So the worm is a very basic digestive system, and it remembers anxiety. That's where anxiety comes from. It comes from your gut brain. The microbiome lives inside the gut brain, and it does a whole bunch of stuff as well. Now, if you think that the gut brain, okay, that's kind of interesting, but not very useful. Oh, it's incredibly useful. So your gut brain controls all sorts of things. And that, combined with the microbiome, can control things like, let's see, the speed at which your hair grows, the speed at which your fingernail grows, your hair color, your eye color, the rate at which you put down lean muscle, the rate at which you put down fat, the rate at which you store fat. What else? Skin color, skin, lots and lots of stuff to do with skin. In fact, it's now known very widely that urinary tract infections produce temporary insanity. People will have massive mood swings when they've got UTIs. Now, that's because there's an upset in the microbiome that lives within the urinary tract. Now, how can a little infection in your urinary tract affect your brain? How can that happen? Well, there is the vagus nerve, which runs from the gut to the brain. But it takes a very circuitous route. It goes around the whole body before it ends up at the gut. And most of the signals go up to the brain, not the other way around. I think it's something like 80% of the signals go from the gut to the brain. So the gut is telling the brain what to do, not the other way around. Have you ever been anxious and not entirely sure why? Now, there's a number of reasons this can be. One, because you find yourself in a situation that your gut recognizes and your human brain, your big brain doesn't. It recognizes a threat. And so your brain will start casting around to try and work out what that threat is. It could also be because you're quite empathic and you're picking up on the anxiety of people around you. We had a young guy that we were working with who was on a TV show, and it was very nerve-wracking. And he said, we walked into the rehearsal room and I was really, really anxious, but I wasn't beforehand. And he said, well, I said to him, look, he particularly as a very empathic young man. And so I asked him, is it possible that he's just picking up on the anxiety of everybody else? And after a few minutes, we kind of worked out that's probably what it was. And so rather than be affected by it, we decided that he'd be the creature that eats the anxiety of the others. He can actually make that happen. So if you are one of those people that are quite empathic, you feel other people's feelings, the first thing to do is recognize that it's not your own. The second thing is to work out what you want to do about it. But if you can separate it, you're a long way towards a solution. So sometimes your fear, in terms of conjuring courage, is just recognizing it's not your fear. But a lot of the time it is. So let's not dwell on that too much. But I think that's useful to point that out early, because what we're going to try and do is start to identify what our anxieties are and where they come from. So anxieties start in the gut. The gut brain is where anxiety lives and breathes. You know, if you get butterflies, where do you feel it? In your gut. The gut brain is about as smart as a demented house cat. I have a demented house cat here somewhere who was yelling around just a few moments ago. I kicked him out of the room. He remembers. He doesn't do time though. You can't say, I'll feed you in an hour. Cat doesn't get that. Doesn't get language. But he gets actions. And so I can't talk you out of anxiety, but we can use action to cure it. Now, anxiety and courage are not the same thing, and I realize that, but I'm talking a little bit about anxiety because I'm going to give you a bunch of different tools tonight. We're not just going to focus on the one tool. So one of the tools I've already spoken about is identifying when it's not your fear. The second one is working out that it's an anxiety that is coming from your gut and you're not entirely sure why it's there. It's one of those nameless ones. And you'll look, you are brilliant. You are really smart. I know that, because you'll find a way of justifying it. Just as this young man did. He said, well, you know, I realized I probably should be anxious because, you know, why I was anxious was because, you know, it's coming up to the semi-finals and we're, you know, everyone's, you know, going to get, you know, voted out or whatever. So yeah, I should get. So he justified it, but it turns out it wasn't his anyway. And so when we work out it's not yours, then the next thing you can do something different with it. So let's have a look at what else we've got in the systems. One of the other ones is the changing your mindset. So understanding your fear response. Hang on, let's go back. That one, there we go. So changing your mindset to fear is seeing it as for what it is. Now, if I said that I am going to go on stage, let's talk about public speaking. I'm going to go on stage and my pulse rate goes a bit faster. I can feel it going faster. And I'm starting to feel adrenaline surging through my body. Would you say that I'm feeling anxious? Who would say that I'm feeling anxious? I'm going to look for some responses from you guys, because I don't want to be standing here doing this on my own. I feel a bit odd. Do you feel like, does that sound like anxious? Does that sound like anxiety to you? Does that happen to you? Okay. Cool. What if I told you I was just excited? Same physical reactions. I'm so excited I might shit myself. So excitement and fear have the same kind of responses in your body. So how are you going to see them? If you see it as a positive, then it's something to work with. That doesn't mean you don't want to have you're not going to do the next exercise that I'm going to show you, but it means that you can say, wow, I can feel my excitement building. So I'm changing the language around what I use for this. Right? If you're lying awake at night, you could be lying awake at night because you're excited or anxious, worried, troubled, anticipating with glee, maybe. Okay, that's a bit of a stretch. But you could be looking forward to something. Changing that mindset can work. It's a stopgap, I realize that. But if you're trying to deal with courage and bring it on very quickly, then changing that mindset is one of those. Look, there is a long-term answer to this. There is a way to be completely bulletproof. And I'm going to try and cover bits of it towards tonight, but it's, I have an hour. I'm not going to be able to make you bulletproof in an hour. I'm just not that good yet, but I'm working on it. So understanding your fear response, understanding what it feels like for you, and measuring it. How excited are you on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is you want to run screaming from the room, and 1 is you're so laid back they could keep a cider in you for a week. You're so chill, baby. Measure it. How big is it, and what does the response require from you? Those that have been on calls, I can see there's a couple of people who've been on a few of these webinars with me before, and I apologize that I keep repeating myself, but if it's important, you're going to measure it. If you really want to conjure courage, you're going to measure it. If you want to beat fear, you have to measure it. Measure, measure, measure. There is no way of doing this without measuring it. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how big is your excitement? Each of those numbers requires an action. So if I'm really laid back and chilled, my action is remain so. If my action, though my excitement level gets to a 4, I might, so for me, a 4 might be an increase in adrenaline, a slight increase in heart rate. So what I might do is use some of that adrenaline. What's a way you could use adrenaline? Any suggestions from the room? I know that a couple of you probably have already been on a course where I've spoken about it. So absolutely, go for a run or something. So a bit hard to go for a run when you're just about to walk in and give a presentation, isn't it? So we need something to be able to use up a little bit of adrenaline very quickly. So my wife is an opera singer and she does wall push-ups. So you just lean against the wall and then do a little push-up, okay? Doesn't ruin your frock. It just uses a little bit of adrenaline, just a little bit. Me, I'm a bigger guy. I do squats. A power pose. Not really going to use adrenaline unless you're doing it in a deep squat. What you want to do is you want to engage large muscles. So the biggest way of using adrenaline, just to give you an idea, is hot cold shower. So you stand in a shower, you turn the water to really quite hot. You don't want to burn yourself, but you want it to be getting close to uncomfortable. And I want you to turn in the shower and note where the taps are for that temperature. And then when your body is nice and warm, turn it to completely cold and keep turning around. So slowly turning. So we're talking about this pace. Now, if you can't see my camera, I'm turning slowly around. And I took maybe 12 steps to do 1 revolution. So what will happen is the body, my skin, when I hit the cold water, is going to shrink and try and protect itself. And then I'll hit the hot water and it will open. And what you'll find by the 3rd or 4th time of this is your skin is literally breathing. You can feel it go. Hot, then cold. I usually find for me, cold, it was only 1 revolution, whereas hot can be up to 3 revolutions to get hot again. It takes quite a bit longer, but the cold seems to be quite brutal. It won't make you sick. In fact, it actually is useful for preventing colds. So that's the way for, if you're having a large adrenaline attack at night, that one will absolutely help you sleep. But you're about to go on stage. There's no time for a quick shower or even to go for a run. So a squat, push up against the wall. You want to engage, as I say, the large muscles. So doing a squat, you're engaging your quads, your glutes and bits of your back. So you really are using quite a bit of muscle. And what that will do, it won't make the feeling go away. It'll just absorb a bit of that extra adrenaline. Now, it's the extra adrenaline that you can hear in a person's voice when they start talking and then they get a little bit excited, or their voice breaks, or all that sort of stuff. That's a little bit extra adrenaline running through their system. You'll see their hands shake, right? Nerves or extra adrenaline? Bit of both. So take the adrenaline out and feel yourself calm down. So dealing with fear, let's move on, because I want to talk, I want to get to, there's some extra cool stuff I want to do at the end of today. Within an organization, if you, is anyone running their own company at the moment and has staff? If I don't have anyone with staff on, I will skip this. I'll give you a couple of seconds to tell me you do. If you don't, that's fine. Yeah, not sure that a virtual assistant counts, but I'll cover it very quickly for virtual assistants. Organization courage. So building courage into your organization. And that really, when I wrote this particular presentation, I was actually working presenting it to an organization, and they were looking at culture. So courage in your organization should be rewarded and encouraged. Informed failure can bring huge leaps in innovation. So what I'm trying to talk about, even with a virtual assistant, is let them try stuff. Encourage your team to try stuff. If you don't have staff, one day you will, so this may come in handy. Get them to try things on their own and break. Show them that it's not a terrible mistake. It's not terrible to make mistakes. Sure, if they make a mistake again and again and again, you got to do something about that. But if they try something and it doesn't entirely work, excellent, because they're likely to try something again. And what you want in your staff, what you want in your team is innovation from within. You employ smart people. Virtual assistants are smart people, so employ them, give them the reins a little bit, see what you can get out of them, what they can put in themselves. And of course, the culture of courage starts with courageous leadership. And it can be, I work with a number of businesses, I'm currently working with a number of businesses looking to hire their first staff members. And there's that fear of, how am I going to let this stuff go? And what happens if they get it wrong? But realistically, you're hiring them for this. So their job is to get it wrong from time to time, to learn from it, and eventually surpass you. Does that make sense for those that have staff? Let's talk about some courage hacks, shall we? So we spoke about measuring it. So how big is your fear? Most modern fear is imaginary or perceived, isn't it? You are not going to die if you walk out on stage or someone judges you. I'll make a note here because it's something I desperately want to cover, but I'm not going to cover it right now. Right. So the first thing is to measure it. How big is your fear? Now, just because it's a fear to you, and I say it might be imaginary or perceived, it doesn't mean I'm saying that it's not real. It is 100% real. Your problems are your problems. Your fears are your fears. They are exactly what you think they are. So don't think that I'm belittling them. Not at all. But if you want to take control of them, the first thing you have to do is measure them. The second thing is you need to act. Now, usually you only need 20 seconds of courage to overcome a particular thing. So if you are wanting to ask the boss for a raise, once you've opened your mouth and started the conversation, that's your 20 seconds. From then on, it's already happening. If you want to ask somebody out on a date, 20 seconds of courage. Could you marshal 20 seconds of courage if you needed to? In terms of giving a presentation, walking out on stage, opening your mouth and saying your first sentence, that's your 20 seconds. If you can do that, after that, you're already going. You don't need courage anymore. You only need courage for that very first little bit, that first part of taking that action. Change your focus. Now, I have clients where their focus, I've got to make a call and I can't seem to do it. So what we do is we change the focus from the outcome to the task. What do you actually have to do? So don't think about, if the outcome is a problem, think about the task. Vice versa works as well. So if your task is the thing that's scaring you, think about the outcome. Why are you doing it? If your outcome is big enough, if you focus enough on your outcome, the task will take care of itself. And if the outcome is the problem, just focus down on the task. So chunk up or chunk down, both work really, really well. And I find this, even myself, all the time. If there's something on my list that's not getting done, we used this the other day with a client. They have to write a terms and conditions for the website. It's been on the list for 3 weeks. Why is that? Because it's they either don't want it or it's too complex. It's the only two reasons. Turns out they really do want it, so it must be too complex or too simple. So which one is it? Too complex or too simple? Well, we think it's too complex. I wouldn't know where to start. Great. So the first thing is to read terms and conditions, or it's boring. Yep. To read terms and conditions. So boring, I think boring is in that I don't want it enough. Maybe not. Maybe it's so tedious that you just can't bring yourself to take action on it. Maybe. So maybe that's the 20 seconds of courage at that point, 20 seconds of action. If it's a particularly complex task, then it may be worth breaking it down into less complicated parts. So for writing a terms and conditions for a website, we started by reading terms and conditions on another website. Now, the next week it still wasn't done, so we broke it down into reading terms and conditions from this website, which we have now printed. Right, now it became, okay, well, I just picked this up and I'm going to read it and highlight the bits that make sense. And from there, the task then rolled in, got done. So it wasn't so much courage, it was finding those triggers within yourself. But that shift of focus can work with courage and fear as well. Now, it's interesting, I've got to this point, and I actually haven't talked about what fear is. False evidence appearing real, you'll see people write that. Fear is a lack of knowledge. I have not yet found any fear that isn't a lack of knowledge. If you knew someone was going to judge you and you knew exactly how they were going to think, you wouldn't be as scared of it. You might want to react to it. You may want to do something about it, but you're no longer scared of it. There's no fear there. There is resentment, maybe. There is don't care anymore or whatever, but the fear disappears. So what I tend to find is with fear response, if you're scared of something, if you're anxious about something, what is it you don't know? This should be the first question. And who can I ask? I'm just going to repeat that because it's really important. If you are feeling anxious, the first question, once you spot that in yourself, should be, what is it I don't know? Because there will be something. And the second question, who could I ask? Now, I do get people tell me in when I do this in workshops, oh, well, can't you just Google it? Sure. But if you can reach out to a person, you're going to get a far better response. Google is amazing. I use it all the time. I write code and I know how to formulate my questions to get out of it the particular function or piece of assembly code or whatever it is that I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is a very accurate and well thought out response, but my question is also accurate and well thought out. So if you're asking a question about fear, the chances are your fear question isn't well thought out, because there's a good chance you don't know what you don't know, right? That's what I'm getting to. And when you don't know what you don't know, you ask a person. There's something about this I don't know. Great. So who can you phone or who can you talk to that would know that? So I have 6 specific people that I'll go to with specific problems. 6, I call them my 6 coaches. The reason I go to them is because they can give me a very quick response to a quick particular question that I have. And I would say to you, assemble your team. Who can you call when things don't work? Who is likely to take the call and who is qualified to give you the answer you want? Now, don't ask your brother-in-law unless your brother-in-law is actually an expert in that field. You are a high performer. You guys are all running your own businesses. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on this call. You're running your own business and you're looking for ways of being more courageous. So build yourself a team of courageous experts that you can ask specific questions. Make sure you've got the question written down. I don't phone any of my team unless I've got the question written down. But when I phone, I know if at all possible, they will answer, because they know I only call if I've got a particular question. So I'm not wasting their time. So if you feel anxiety, what is it I don't know? And who can I ask that would know? Let's keep moving with some of the courage hacks. Practice hard. When you're the expert, the fear is replaced by knowledge. So if you are scared of stepping out on stage, step out on stage 1,000 times. If this was your 1,000th time, then this would be easy. How do you practice hard when it's something that you can't do unless you have a stage and an audience? You can practice it in your head. You need to understand what it looks like, or if they've shifted things or whatever, but the brain can't tell the difference between a really well-imagined event and an actual event. So if you want to get really good at this, practice it in your head. Literally practice it. So there have been lots of studies on this where, teams practice throwing the perfect shot in their brain, and then a team out practicing the perfect shot, and the ones that imagined it did better than the ones that actually practiced it. Because the ones that imagined it never missed. So there was an expectation in their brains that they would. But practice hard. If you are the expert in something, then your fear is replaced by knowledge, or phone someone. You don't need to be the expert in everything. You do need to know experts in the bits that you need. So I have 2 publishing companies. I'm not an expert on publishing, but I damn well have people on my phone that are. I know who to call, and I have quite a few of those. I have a legal company. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a director of a legal company. So I have legal people that I can phone. I have a medical company, so I've got medical people that I can phone. Do you see the pattern here? I assemble experts so that I don't have to have those fears. Let's move on, because I really want to get to some fun stuff. Attitude, turn fear into excitement. As we were saying before, excitement and fear feel the same. So these are your mafia courage hacks. Measure, act, focus, inform, and check your attitude. And realistically, they're in the right order because measuring is your number one. If you start measuring it, you might go, well, I feel like it's an 8. Actually, maybe it's only a 4. Maybe 3. It felt big, but then when I went to measure it, I realized it wasn't actually that bad. This will absolutely happen to you. If you measure it, you will notice things moving around. But give yourself actions for stuff. So when you're measuring, what are the different actions that you will take if you get yourself into those situations, if you start to feel it for you? So what I want you to do is actually have a go-to list of things that you do when your fear level goes up, when your anxiety level goes up. How are you going to conjure the courage that you need? Well, you're going to have a little list. If you get to a 6, you phone someone, or maybe that's a 7 for you, or maybe it's an 8. Maybe you have a high resilience and you can handle large amounts of fear. Maybe you get up and leave. That's okay. No one has a gun to your head. At any point you can leave. If it gets to an 8, I'm going to leave. Sometimes just knowing that that's going to happen gives you the permission to sit and relax a little bit more. Now, I did say I was going to cover speaking in public a little bit. So we've talked about the different aspects of fear, but the two main ones really, as we spoke about, was fear of being judged and fear of speaking in public. I'll cover speaking in public first, and then I'll come back to being judged, because that's, for me, if I can cure you of that, then I'm creating a rather an exceptional individual. So speaking in public, the first thing is to own the space. So what I want you to do is, if you have to speak in public, especially if it's on a stage somewhere, if you can, get up on the stage before you have to do your presentation. Get up there and feel what it looks like, so that it's not a shock when you arrive there when you have to give your presentation. Know what it feels like. And that is the space where you belong. So if you go and claim the space, I do this with students. I get them to come and claim the space as their own, just in their own head. This is my space. Then when they sit back down, they're looking up and someone else is in their space. So it's much easier for them to come back and claim it later. The second thing, adrenaline. Use your extra adrenaline, do a little squat, do something to use up extra adrenaline if you feel that it's building. The third one is to work with your gut brain, and this is a cool one. So I sort of developed this maybe 6 years ago. It's actually to walk out, to plan your exit. So as I said, the gut brain doesn't have language, but it does get emotions and feelings. It gets it from the rest of your body, and it certainly gets actions. And in general, the gut brain controls the feet and the head brain controls your hands. So get your feet to walk you out of there. Open the door a couple of times, feel the weight of it. If you are standing reasonably by yourself, you can actually say the words out loud, "This is how I escape." You literally plan your escape. Now, I had a guy that was absolutely terrified of speaking in public. Lovely bloke, plumber, but he absolutely terrified of speaking in public. So much so that if 3 or 4 family members, when he was out on a job, walked into a room, he would have to walk out because he couldn't speak in the room with that many people. And so what we did, firstly, we measured it. We measured how big it was on a scale of 1 to 10. And we planned the exit. So we made sure that he knew how heavy the door was, which way it opened, how many people he would have to get past on the way out. We actually put him by the exit, so he was quite a bit closer to the exit than where he would have normally sat. As his anxiety grew, I got him to point his feet towards the door to give him that idea that he was leaving if he needed to, and that he had permission to leave. This is your escape. This, you know, you've practiced it. You know how to get out of here now. Turns out he didn't. And I could see his feet got jumpy, but he didn't actually jump up and leave. He now wins awards for his speaking. And his anxiety, he says, only gets to like a 1 or a 2. So he practiced it, but to overcome it, plan your escape. If you are doing public speaking, plan your escape, plan how to get out of there. The last piece is know your material. Know it perfectly. Know exactly what you're going to say. No surprises. If you know your stuff, then you won't get caught up on it. If it is a sort of fairly lengthy presentation, I would recommend you start learning it from the back and work your way towards the front. So I say learn the last paragraph, then the first paragraph, then the second last, third last, fourth last, and work your way back. Keep going that way. You want to know the first ones because you want to be able to get started, and you want to finish strong. People will remember how you finish. So finish strong, end on the last note, on a really strong note. And the thing is, as you've come towards the end, you're calm, you're starting to calm down, and you're heading into home territory because you've done this so many times. So learn it backwards. Very quickly, the other way I get people to learn scripts is to learn them in accents. So say them in a weird way or put weird pauses in. What that will do is you'll be thinking about the way to say it rather than what the words are, and the words will just come easily. So in terms of public speaking and fear, these are the ways to get over it. Plan your escape. Know your material. Use up a little bit of adrenaline. Oh, and one other point. Be a hunter. If you are a hunter, you cannot be a hunter and a victim at the same time. If you walk out on that stage and you're hunting for something, then you cannot be a victim. You cannot be the person that's being chased because you are the person who is chasing. So it might be you're looking for the person who blinks the most. If you can't see the audience, maybe you're listening for the loudest breather or the biggest laugh or the loudest cough. But if you have that in your brain, it is really hard to be the victim at the same time. Those two are opposite systems. And so to engage both is really, really hard to do. I would say next to impossible, but I'm sure I haven't tested this one. So I'm sure there's probably some person who can do both. But for the most of us, if you're the hunter, you cannot be the victim. And that works for a lot of the fear scenarios. If you are the hunter, you cannot be the victim. Ideally, though, you don't want to be the hunter or the victim. You just want to be at peace. And peace is going to bring me into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is fear of being judged. Fear of being judged is a lack of self-esteem. You care about what others think, and therefore because you don't know what you think well enough. You don't know who you are. So if you knew exactly who you are, 100%, if you had in your brain at your disposal all of your skills and knowledge, all of your failures and successes, everything that goes to make up you, every part of your history, everything you're proud of and everything you're ashamed of, and even those things that you're ashamed of, I would say you can use those to build your armor, to inform the real version of you. They're you too. You made mistakes. Everybody does. They don't make you any less of a person, but they can make you more. So there's an exercise that we do when I'm working with clients is that we will go through and we will pull all of this apart and we will rebuild it so that you can become fearless. And what that feels like is peace. No anxiety, no fear of being judged, don't care, because I know who I am. Therefore, I'm at peace. Or is that, am I at peace because I know who I am? I think probably that way. Does it sound, am I speaking mumbo jumbo, or am I actually, does this make sense to you guys? I can tell you it works. It absolutely works. If I can get you to understand exactly who you are without a shadow of a doubt, unshakable faith in exactly who you are, then you won't care what anyone else thinks. You don't care about judgment. You don't care. You can walk on the stage. Don't care. With the Toastmasters one. So there's a presentation I give called Authentic Authority, and I wrote it for Toastmasters. They asked me to come out and talk about the enteric nervous system and how you could rein it in and take it under control. And so the first time I gave the presentation, I purposely went out with my fly undone. I'm not embarrassed. Why would I be embarrassed? People have their fly undone all the time. And I purposely did that to show them that it's actually okay. Everything is okay. Where are we for time? 10 minutes. All right, what have I got left to cover? The group courage exercise. Well, look, I didn't get, I got fear of being judged. And who was it saying they had fear of being judged? Because we've got the group exercise next, but realistically, you can't really do that in this environment. So I'm going to stop share for a second. Let's have a look. Let me go back. Who has, now this is your time. Being criticized public, bad reviews. Fantastic. Now, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one, and they're usually full of shit. If you know you did a good job and you are confident in yourself, then you don't care. Now, if the negative review means that you're going to get less action, less trade, less something, then you need to do something about it. But you don't need to fear it. You just need to, right? If I get a negative review, I'm going to do this. If I get a positive review, I'm going to do this. If I get a negative review, I'm going to correspond with the person who gave me the negative review, assuming it's online. If it's in a newspaper, you might be a little bit hard pressed, but you can put a letter to the editor. But I'm going to respond, and then I'm going to move forward. The only person you should be trying to improve is yourself. The only person you should be trying to impress is yourself. And the way you should impress yourself is by being you. You are not allowed to beat yourself up for things that you did in the past. Never, not ever. Why is that? Well, you did the best you could with the information you had at the time. Then you learned more, and then you beat yourself up for not knowing. That's hardly fair. If you didn't know something, you couldn't have done anything differently. You did the best you could with the information you had at the time. And I know what you're thinking, because I had the same thoughts. You're thinking about something you've done in the past and go, that doesn't apply. Yeah, it does. Absolutely does. If you want to conjure courage, you have to have the courage to accept that you did the best you could with what you knew at the time. Now, tomorrow's a new day, right? So you could do different things. You can learn new stuff and you can make different decisions, but that doesn't allow you to go back and have a hard time or a hard word with your past self. Your past self did the best they could, and you will too. And what I find is people wrap themselves up in this idea that, I can't move forward because I might make another mistake and then I'll have to beat myself up about that too. Stop it. It's not helping. Every day you get to learn new stuff, so you get to make better decisions. Tonight, right now, you've learned more things. So tomorrow you can make better decisions. Yesterday, you didn't know that. Therefore, you can't beat yourself up for it. Knowing yourself is the greatest hack. Actually, all of you If you can know yourself and see yourself in perspective to all of the things that you've done, all the things that you've been, with respect to this one thing that's going wrong now that you're fearful of, it will be so insignificant that you won't care. In 10 years' time, will anyone care about what you're scared about right now? Well, if you keep being worried about it, yes, you will. But that's the point, isn't it? Knowing yourself. Now, I'm going to jump to some homework, so I've got some time for questions. Create a list of your fears, including the big ones and the small ones. Oh, hang on, I better share my screen because you can't see that. And you're sure one of my trusty people are about to say, hey, Stu, we can't see the share screen. Hoping you can see it now. My video's disappeared. There it is. Right. Just let me know that you can see that again. Can you see the homework? Yep, perfect. Create a list of your fears, big ones, small ones. What I want you to do is pick the big ones. I want you to do the ones that are stopping you from moving forward. You guys are incredibly special. You are incredibly smart. And the only thing standing between you and your absolute potential is these little fears. So let's write them out and get rid of them. For each one, decide if it is stopping you reaching your potential. What information do you need to deal with the top one? Who would know how to solve that? Get it off your list. Solve it now. Go find the information and deal with your fear. Call the person that would know. If it's a fear of being judged, then you need to work on yourself. Sorry. Sure, I can help with that, but not in this environment. But that's the absolutely. If you can work out how to know yourself better, you'll solve that one. Move down your list, conquering a new fear every week for 6 weeks. Take your 6 top fears and throw them in the bin. How would that feel? If I could get you to write down, and I'm not asking you to do it right now because I'm speaking, but maybe you are. I'm hoping you've taken a pen and paper and taken some notes. But if I could get you to write 6 things down that you're afraid of, and I could guarantee that you won't be afraid of them in 6 weeks, would it change your life? Would it change how you look at the world? What is it you want for yourself? What is it worth to get rid of those 6 fears? Now, I do say, do the homework, don't do the homework, I don't care, but I think you want to do the homework. And the trick with doing this is that when you've done 6 fears, you'll know how to clear other ones as they come up. Now, we live in an ever-changing world. And so it's not enough just to have one tool at your disposal. You need a whole suite of tools. But solving 6 different fears is going to give you probably a couple of different tools to use, so that when a new one comes up, you'll remember, oh, that's right, I'm going to write it down, I'm going to measure it, I'm going to take action, I'm going to find out what I don't know. I'll practice it hard if I need to. I'll avoid it if I need to. I'll show myself how to escape if I need to. This is how you conjure courage when you need to. Use the adrenaline, engage your gut brain, become a hunter, and know yourself. I'm going to finish the recording there. If you are playing along at home and you're watching this, I'm sorry you missed it. I'm sorry you missed being with us tonight. And but hopefully I will catch you up again at another recording.